And we're back, folks. Another episode. As some of you guys may know, I've been working with a company called Angel Host. Basically what they are is they're like a partner that works with my management company. So what does that mean? They help me with customer service, revenue management. They help me build out my Airbnb listings. They help me get on VRBO, Booking.com. I've been working with them for the last couple months, been diving in as much as I can to learn. And I have the opportunity to talk to one of the CEOs, Eduardo. So we're gonna jump into this call, talk with Eduardo, ask a bunch of questions, and trust me, you're not gonna wanna miss this because he drops all kinds of great information here, so stay tuned.
Well, thanks for jumping on the call. I'd love for everyone to meet you and introduce yourself, a quick history of the company, who you are, and that good stuff.
Sure. Nice to be here, John. Angel Host is a company I founded about 4 years ago. It's actually my seventh company. I'm literally a serial entrepreneur. I love starting things. I love finding problems that need to be solved and then starting a company to solve it. And Angel Host was a little bit about that. I was the owner of a property, and I realized that my property manager was struggling, with renting my property, and was struggling with dynamic pricing, and was struggling with figuring out what technologies to use. And I realized that if my property manager had that issue, probably a lot of property managers were struggling with the same type of things. And my background as an internet entrepreneur is in technology, and I've always loved using technology to solve issues. And the cool thing about our world of vacation rentals and short-term rentals is that there's a lot of technology out there. Right? So what we have decided is to put together this company that takes the best technologies that we can find in different places, and we layer on top of that our own technology and our own team in order to deliver better results for the property management companies and the owners that we work with. Mm-hmm. So it's not that it's rocket science, but there's a science behind it. And because of the science that we follow, we do produce higher results than the market average. That's for sure. In every single market, we're now in 11 different countries. Wow. And every place we go to, every new city that we open up, we always outperform the market. Wow. And like I said, it's a combination of the technology, but it's a combination also of having the right team and the right approach and the right methodology. So it really comes down to that.
Wow, man, that's cool. Yeah, you're definitely a serial entrepreneur startup for sure. 7 is quite a bit, man. But I have to say, like, you and I first met in Austin at a Guesty trade show, and your stage presence and confidence in where the company was going and like the direction was like, it just spoke to me as a small business owner, with a handful of properties, running into the challenges, like you said, trying to figure out all this tech, all this software, trying to be an expert in guest communications and pricing and management. And I was like, when I first heard it, I was like, is this true? Like, is this sounds too good to be true. Like, and then you were super cool. I went right up to you and we started chatting, and you're like, no, everything I said is true. This is what we do. And I was like blown away about the possibilities of it for someone so small. I always thought those type of companies would be for somebody with hundreds and thousands of properties right now.
And so that's what we're trying to do. That's what we try to do, John. I mean, a lot of the technologies that we use and a lot of the methodologies that we follow, usually very large property management companies are the only ones that can afford, to have someone on their team to be always on the lookout for the best tech, to be someone on the team always studying the AIRBNB algorithms or the verbal algorithms and figuring out what works and what doesn't. It's only the large companies that can afford to do that. So the idea is to bring a little bit of like a democratization, if that's the word. Like we try to bring it to everybody. And we can do it because of our scale, right? And because of all the properties that we have. If we were only managing 10 or 15 or 20 or 50, it would be impossible. It would be way too costly. So that's what we're trying to bring to the table.
Yeah, one thing I got to definitely point out, which maybe the viewers don't know, just a quick rundown. So like I have, let's say 5 properties with you guys, and you guys do a really good job of assigning a whole entire team to me that basically is like extending my workforce. So I have an amazing revenue management guy that I talk to all of the time, and we're always adjusting. I mean, we have the Super Bowl coming up. It's got to be the most complicated pricing ever. And to have a team constantly looking at my pricing and changing things and giving me feedback and suggestions, it's mind blowing. Like that alone has been so awesome. Then I have a project manager who oversees everything that goes on. I can reach her at any time. She's super, super helpful and on top of it. Then we have a 24-hour guest communication with the what's up information. And, you know, right before our call, we got a last minute booking, which is always scares the heck out of me. And they know that. So they write me, they're like, hey, I know it's a last minute booking. They have 9 reviews. They said they would fill out the background check. I think we should do this. And I'm like, if you feel confident, I feel confident. Let's try to get it done. Boom, boom. 30 minutes later, everything's done. I could never do that on my own. It's like, it's just really special what you guys are building, man. It's really cool to watch it in real time.
I'm really happy you feel that way, because that's exactly what we're trying to do. And if it comes to guest verification, well, we have the software, we can send out the rental agreements. We have our team that is, you know, calling the guests to say, you have not filled out the form, you haven't sent the ID, you haven't sent us a photocopy of your you know, your selfie or something, you know, selfie showing us your ID. So we go through all of those things to ensure that we help property managers. I mean, we are not infallible. Sometimes, you know, issues happen. Sometimes, you know, we can have bad guests can happen to anyone, but we take as many precautions as possible. And also we put the right technology in place to help us with that, you know. And you're right, we have a guest services team that we believe we shouldn't wait ever more than 5 or 7 minutes. In fact, our average is replying 24 hours a day within 7 minutes. The industry average is like 55 minutes. We like replying quickly, and the guests like it when we reply quickly. And probably our team has been asking you a lot of questions, right? Because at first might not be experts in how your properties work, or you know, where's the closest grocery store, or where can they get wood for the fireplace or whatnot. But as we learn about your property, we are bothering you less and less because we save all those replies, right? So yeah, it's exactly like you mentioned, John, and I'm happy you feel that way, because that's what we're trying to bring to the table, so that our clients increase their sales, reduce their workload, and the guests are happy. Happiness is one of our values, and we want everybody to be happy, right? So, and we're in an industry that sometimes things can be a little bit stressful and a little bit difficult, and so we try to take some of that stress and, you know, and workload off the shoulders of our clients, and handle it in the most professional way.
Yeah, it's been cool. It's Angel Host and Hildy Homes, my property management company, working together for a handful of months now, and it has given me a whole different light of confidence, right? In my sales pitch. It's making me more confident to take on more properties. Before, I could only take on so many properties. Like at 5 to 8 properties, managing by yourself starts becoming 24/7, and it's really hard to keep up. Stuff starts falling through the cracks. So like now working with your team, I can say yes to some properties that I might have said no before because I just didn't have the bandwidth. And now I can open up my business. I can grow my business. We're in talks right now of launching a few new properties, which would be fantastic. And I could never do that before. And then on that note, we're still always improving. Like I had a couple questions on one of my listings you guys built and how they wrote it and why they wrote it a certain way. And I was like, hey, would you mind jumping on a call? Explain to me why you're writing it this way, why you putting some stuff here and not here. And we had an hour talk. We fine-tuned everything. They explained it. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense. I like that way. I didn't think of it this way. So it's like this part, it's like such a strong partnership instead of like, hey, this is the way we do things. This is the way it needs to be done. It's like, oh, we want to hear your input and then let's talk through it and then let's adjust.
Exactly, John. You have so much knowledge about your properties, about your market, right? You're there. So sometimes, as good as our editors might be, and we have some really smart people, but sometimes they might miss out on a few things, and then you point something out and they're like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. We should include that on the listing, right? Or sometimes we read the guest reviews and then we adapt the listings based on the guest reviews, because if the guests are saying, oh, we love the jacuzzi, or we love the fact that it was so close to this, to that attraction, then we have to make sure that that's mentioned on one of the top 5 reasons why to stay at that property, right? Because that's what people are basically giving you the thumbs up for. So, so it's an ongoing process. It's not a set and forget. It never is a set and forget. It's about putting the listing live, and then it becomes a live entity, and we have to constantly monitor it. And sometimes it hasn't. I don't think it's happened with any of your listings, but sometimes we even have to relaunch listings because for some reason. I was at a conference last week explaining how we try to interpret the Airbnb algorithm, and we realize how sometimes listings get into this dead zone where we're not getting any bookings, and the only way to get out of that dead zone is to relaunch the listing. Right. And I was explaining how obviously it's not something recommended for every listing. You do it as a last resort, but sometimes even if you have 2, 3, 4, 5 reviews, it's better to leave those on the side and say, okay, let's relaunch this and let's get some good traction, because it's really interesting to see that when a listing starts getting bookings, and as long as the listing gets regular bookings, the Airbnb algorithm interprets that as a listing that the audience finds interesting, and therefore it's being booked. If it's being booked, it must be because it's good, right? And if it's good, let's promote it at the top. So you start entering into this virtuous circle of bookings, as opposed to a vicious circle of bookings where you don't get any bookings, therefore you rank lower, and because you rank lower, then you get even less bookings. So it is a live entity. You have to be monitoring these things, and that's what we have the tools for the team. If you were to, look over the shoulders of one of our revenue managers and how they do the day-to-day, on top of using dynamic pricing softwares and always being adapting, they always have all these signals from our system that says, hey, here's a listing that hasn't had a booking in 7 days. And this is a listing that usually gets at least 1 booking within 7 days. So you didn't get one, there's something probably wrong. You should look into it. Send it to the optimization team so they can see whether they need to change the title, maybe the hero image, maybe the hero image was the pool, and now everybody has the pool as their hero image. So you need to have a different angle or a different thing to catch the attention of the audience, right? So it's all of those things, John, that we try to always be on top of that and ultimately measure our success based on how we perform versus the market, right? And you mentioned that it gives you, and I'm happy to hear that it gives you the time and the confidence to go and search for more properties. And I'm hoping that if ever you need our help for, hey, can I show some reports to this client showing how we outperform the market in this region? Of course, we'll support you with that. We'll prepare a report. We'll call our revenue manager and say, can you pull up a report for this particular community or for this area so that we can show the type of numbers and or we have examples on how we have outperformed the market on that area, right? So yeah, that's how it
we're
works.
actually doing that right now with one of the properties. Like I think it was 2 days ago, and like before this call, we started talking about it. It's a big property. It's like a $2.5 million home, absolutely gorgeous, on all levels, and they're moving out of the country, so they need somebody they can really trust and have a team, but they don't want to sell. So I was like, hey, let me get a hold of my management team, my revenue management team. I'll put you some accurate numbers. Don't let other people bluff you and what you can and can't do. I'm going to show you actual numbers and competition. Man, we put together this really good report, and it's got me to the next level, right? They're like, okay, we're starting to build trust with this guy. He's in the top. I'm sure they're interviewing other people. They should, but it's given them more and more confidence to be like, wow, this guy's really crossing all his T's. Like, look at this full report. Nobody else is doing that. Nobody's taking the extra time, because it's a lot of work to build out these reports. And yeah, it's been fun doing that, man. I have a lot of fun doing that with you guys.
That's awesome. And remember, we are part of your team. So we are not even, when you talk with your client, you should be talking about your guest services team, right? About your revenue management team. And if our team produces something for you, John, our logo shouldn't even be there. If you don't want a logo to be there, you should just replace our logo with your logo and then just, present this as part of your extended team. We are, in the eyes of your client, you're John, you're the face of the company, but behind you, you have this big group of people that are part of your team supporting the operation, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we want to be for, property managers like yourself. We want to be that support back office, that group that basically allows you to continue growing your business, to approach new owners, to put your mind into other things than just, the verifying rates every day or making changes to the listing.
Totally. And you touch base on this a little bit. And I always talk about this on my channel, being an Airbnb ambassador, the algorithm is so tricky. And you talk about this quite a bit. If you set it and forget it and you're not, feeding it, you're going to get lost in the shuffle. If you're not updating photos and your captions and your house rules, and like you said, maybe redoing it. So it's really cool to hear you guys are always trying to study as much as you can the algorithm. There's only so much we can know from the output or the input, but setting it and forgetting it, definitely not going to work. So the fact that you guys are always educating and then turning that education back to us, say, hey, this is what we learned. Are you willing to try a few things on your listing? Yeah, let's go for it. Let's do it. Why not?
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? We have the time. We worked with a guy. His name is Mike, and funny story. He's in South Africa, of all places. I mean, he's far away, but doesn't matter. We just found him in South Africa, and this guy is a genius when it comes to doing what we call correlation analysis, which is just a fancy word to determine what characteristics do listings that rank at the top of Airbnb, what characteristics do they have? So he created this screen scraping procedure where he goes into Airbnb, does a search for Scottsdale, Arizona, for 4 guests on this date, and runs the search thousands and thousands and thousands of times, and starts extracting from those results what were the characteristics of the listings that constantly showed up on the first position, right? And then by looking at those results, we can see which things happen often and which things don't happen as often, right? So if they happen often, it's but because there must be something good about those listings. So there's the obvious things, like you would see that properties that have good reviews, meaning 4.6 and over, do tend to appear more often on the top search results and others that don't. But we learned something interesting, for example, from this study, that at any given point in time, 30% of the listings that show up on the top 20 search results are new listings.
Wow.
And there's a reason for that, because the Airbnb algorithm needs to test your listing to see if the audience will like it or not. It doesn't know, it has never gotten a booking. I mean, it can probably study some characteristics. Does it have certain amenities that are people looking for? Is it in the right price range? But once it maybe does those checks, it still needs to try it out. And what we have found is that this is a golden opportunity, that if you get things right, you can start securing bookings right away, because that artificial boost that Airbnb gives you to show you in the top results doesn't happen for 2 or 3 months. They're not that patient. They have thousands of listings that they can present. Right? They're going to give yours a chance.
Yeah.
But you need to get a booking right away. And the only way to get a booking right away is if all the stars are aligned. So people often make a mistake of, okay, let's launch the listing and then let's deal with the pictures later. Let's deal with the title later. Let's correct. It's better to wait a little bit longer and to launch the listing with all the stars aligned. The right picture, the right pricing, the right setups, everything, because then you maximize your chances of getting that booking. And if you get that booking, Airbnb is going to say, wait a second, I promoted these guys to the top and they got a booking. It means that they're relevant. It means that people are looking for them. When people see their ad, they're actually they're interested.
Yep.
So we do that type of research, to understand what can drive our listings to the top. What can we do? And then we provide advice. We say, listen, we see that 70% of the listings that got booked had a spa, had a jacuzzi, for example, and yours doesn't. It might be worth it to spend, a couple of $1,000 or $3,000-$4,000 installing one, because we see that it does make a difference. So that's the type of value that we're trying to constantly provide, right? And just finding the time and finding the nick, somewhere in South Africa takes time, and for the report, it takes time. But we love doing that work, we love doing that. And I worked for between companies that I built. I worked for 5 years at an airline, at Air Canada. And I learned so much about pricing, and how much of a difference having the right price for the right ticket on the right day, how much of a difference it can make for an airline. But when you go to airlines, you have people that are specifically trained on how to use these tools. And the same happens in hotels. It's not just the tool, it's having the trained person to do it. And that's what we're trying to bring to the vacation rental industry, to the short-term rental industry, right? That level of professionalism of saying, yes, let's find the right tool and let's match it with the right person. It really comes down to that.
Yeah, I'm curious real quick on your pricing and strategy. You don't have to go too far down it, but I'm curious, are you guys always, tweaking programs? Are you constantly, thinking about it as a hotel? And the analogy of an airline is genius, because once that flight takes off, you're never selling that seat ever again. And that's what I think a lot of people don't think about with Airbnb. They're like, oh, I want my price to be this. But then when that date's gone, you're never going to be able to book that ever again. So it's really interesting. I'd love to hear your strategy-ish, touch base on it a little bit.
Right. So one of the things that we have found that is the hardest part, and I feel for property managers around the world because they all have the same issue, is that they would like to have price flexibility, but sometimes the owners don't let them have that price flexibility that they're hoping for. There's what I like to call the vanity rate. The vanity rate is like, I don't want to rent my home for less than $500 a night because it has my grandmother's piece of art on the wall and my kids were born there and it's the best property in the world, right? And the problem is that they don't understand that if they force us to rent at $500, well, if the neighbors are renting at $400 or $350 during low season on a Monday to Tuesday, well, if we don't match that, we won't get booked, right? So the best results we normally get are with owners that trust us, that say, you know what, if you think it should be rented at $150, as long as I'm above my cost, of course, we wouldn't want them to rent at a point below their cost. So let's calculate what is the cost of the cleaning, which is normally covered by the guest, but what is the cost of the wear and tear and the extra electricity and the extra whatever is required, to deliver the service. But if you get past that point, everything else is money that is helping you cover for your fixed expenses, for your mortgage, for your property taxes, for your insurance, for the electricity of the fridge that has to run anyways, whether the home is used or not, or the pool heater, or not the pool heater, but at least the pool filter has to run whether you're at the property or not, right?
Yeah.
So our experience is that whenever we have the flexibility, whenever we can convince the owners to give us that flexibility, the results are really awesome. And the way we convince them is with information, right? With data.
Yeah.
Saying, look, we had these homes renting at $250 a night, but they were occupied 90% of the month, whereas this other one was renting at $400. They were only occupied 15% of the month. So you would end up making more with this other pricing strategy. So we have people that are constantly studying that. My favorite type of clients are investors, because investors, they don't have that romantic vision that, oh, I would like to rent at $200. Oh, I would like to have a 90% occupancy rate. Like I say, we can have a 100% occupancy rate at $1 per night, or we can have an ADR of $1,000 a night and rent just one night because we got lucky, depending on the market. But that's not the game. It's all about RevPAR. It's all about what is the average revenue per day? What is the total revenue you're going to make in a month? And I think that's what counts. And that's sometimes difficult to explain, and it requires the constant education, right? And that's where we support our clients to say, here's the report that you can take to your owner and show them the logic behind this. Sometimes they'll still say no, but at least we try,
Yeah, the data is everything. I mean, I deal with it on so many different levels of different types of data, right? And if you show the numbers, it doesn't lie. Like, you can't fib those. It's like, here, these are the hard facts. These are what the numbers could potentially do. This is your cost. This is everything that goes into it. And then you can make your own decision at that point. But at least, like I've noticed over and over and over again, people that are just now investing into it, or they're giving up their home or whatever, once they see the numbers and everything else comes into play, they're like, okay, this is what I could potentially do on a low end, medium, and a high end. And then, like, there's no guessing. It's all about the numbers anyways. If you're getting into this business, you should really study your numbers anyways. But you guys do a really helpful job when it comes to that, for sure. It's pretty cool. Man, you dropped all kinds of little nuggets in here, like all kinds of it. Everyone who's listening, like, you have no idea how many nuggets he just dropped, and I can't wait to like make a couple reels on this, even because so much valuable information that you just shared with everybody. That, but I know, like you said earlier, you have many hats that you wear and whatnot. But what if anybody's listening there and they have a portfolio and their portfolio is growing and they need help and they need service and they need someone like you to step in? What is that process? What's the next steps? Who could they reach out to? Is it, would you kind of explain that a little bit? Because I would love for people to get more involved.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. It's very straightforward. On our website, myangelhost.com, there's a very simple form, that we ask people to fill out. And normally the process that we follow, I find it cool because we don't just get back to people trying to sell them or anything. The first thing we do is what we call an audit. It's like, send us one of your Airbnb listings and let's have a call and discuss what we see you're doing right and where we see an area of opportunity, right? Yeah. And sometimes even just that initial call, whether we end up doing business with a property manager or not, I think they find it very useful. Yep. Because we tell them, listen, you're missing out on these things on your listing, or we've noticed this thing about your pricing, or we did a search for Christmas 2023. And it turns out that you can actually book for a 3-night stay. You should have protected far out bookings with a longer length of stay so that you secure a booking right now. For Christmas, it's a 7-night booking and not a 3-night booking. So careful with that, or your cancellation policy is on lenient. And for this particular market, it doesn't really make a difference. The information we have is that whether you have a straight cancellation policy or lenient, it almost makes no difference. So you might as well have a straight cancellation policy. So we go through that process, right? And then, of course, if they're convinced that they want to work with us, we welcome them. We start the process. We assign them, like you say, an account manager. We look after the listings. If they don't have professional photography, we take care of that. Our editors start working, on the listing, on the distribution on different channels, on the pricing strategy. Our revenue managers, and within, depending on between 2 weeks and 4 weeks, depending on how ready the client is, yep, we're live. And we just start, we start promoting. And the other thing that we also help, we help in many different aspects, right? But, if there's damage and there's a claim that has to be done with AIRBNB, or there's a booking that happened on booking.com and you have a chargeback, we jump in and we try to solve it for you, right? If there's a chargeback, we're going to contact the bank. We're going to give all the proof that, why the chargeback shouldn't happen. We might not win because it's ultimately the bank's decision, but we're going to take care of that work. We will submit the claim expenses to Airbnb, and all of those, things that end up being quite time consuming in our business, we try to help with the team that we have. So yeah, that's the process, John. Very, very straightforward. And like I always tell to my team, and that's what we try to do also at conferences. Share your knowledge. This is a huge industry, right? If we share our knowledge with other people and they take some of our knowledge and they use it themselves, that's great. It's for the best of the industry. Yep. And the more professional we all are, the better it is for everyone, and the better it is for the industry, right? So, generally speaking, my best sales technique so far at conference has been not selling. Seriously. Yeah. Just go there. We share the information we know. We teach people how to bake the cake, and if they want to bake it themselves, absolutely. And I wish them all the best. And if they need our help, that's what we're here for.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys do a good job at not overselling for sure, because it takes some understanding to understand what it is and to give up your baby. Like, I built this company my own by myself from grassroots, and it takes a little bit of a pride to let it go. And I'll be the first to admit it. There was many times I'd call the management team that I work with. I'm like, I don't know, like freaking out or whatever. And then they help me through the process. And I'm like, okay, I know I made the right decision with you guys, and it's not a big deal. And we're getting more bookings now, and I don't have to do as much work. So it's like, it is a process for sure, but man,
it is. And it's a leap of faith as well, John.
Yeah. Leap of faith. That's what
you build the business, right? As you said, it's your business, and I would be nervous as well, right? And that's why sometimes it's better to take some baby steps. And we've had clients that had a portfolio. I have one in mind right now. This portfolio was 110 listings. They gave us 10.
Yeah.
And actually, I asked him, I'm going to ask you just for something. Please don't give me your best 10 or your worst 10. Give me a sample of 10 where you can later on compare apples to apples and say, well, in the same community, in the same neighborhood, whatever, I had one, you had one. They're almost equal properties. Let's see how they work out. And this particular client tested us for an entire year. But it was very cool because at the end of the year, he provided us his numbers and we got our numbers. And then we could compare apples to apples, right?
Cool. Yeah.
And I promise you, we did have a 57% increase in our numbers versus his.
Nice.
And that's when he was convinced. He was like, okay, now I can see that, and we like using also third party. By the way, we love using third party data. There's a company called Key Data that basically aggregates the information from different property managers. So we buy onto their reports because that way they can tell us how our properties, and we share our reservation data with them, how do they compare against other similar properties in the area that we're comparing, right? So that's the ultimate report, because then when you show that you're performing better than the average, you're comparing yourself against other professional property managers that are also participating on the Key Data program. And for me, like I tell my team, that's the ultimate testament that, hey, we do, our methodology works, what we're doing works.
Yeah. Wow. That's really true, man. Well, I can't thank you enough. I always enjoyed talking with you, man. I had so much fun talking with you in Austin, and then we met up again in Vegas, and your whole crew is so much fun, man. Everybody's like really loves what they do, and it's just fun to meet you guys in person. And then now that I've been working with you guys for a few months, and it's like a big giant family at this point. And it's been really cool to watch your guys' journey. I have a few friends that joined you guys in the last couple of months that call me, and they're like so happy that they made the choice. And it's been really cool to see that process too. So I can't thank you enough, man. It's been a really educational journey for me, and I can't wait to keep onboarding more properties and just keep improving, and it just improves the industry as a whole. Like you said, it really does clean up our image and the whole industry. So again, thank you so much for your time. You're a rock star.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
You are, John. You're the rock star. I love your videos and I'm following you, and it's a pleasure working with you. I love your energy, man. I honestly do. I told you that since the day one in Austin where we met.
I remember that. Well, when it starts to warm up a little bit, I'm definitely coming up to the office for sure, because that place is gorgeous.
You should. We have the best coffee. Honestly, I love coffee, and the coffee here is outstanding. And the place is just gorgeous. It used to be an old bank, and it turned into a co-working space. And then we took a bunch of desks here, and it's really cool to work from here. I love it. So you should come over anytime.
Yeah,
you're welcome.
We'll come up and do a whole video tour of the spot and stuff. It'd be super fun.
Of Montreal, and we'll show you all the highlights of Montreal. Absolutely.
Yeah, let's do it. Sign me up. I'm down. Well, thanks again, man.
All right, John.
Appreciate it. You have a good one.
Take care. You too.
All right, that was an awesome interview. I'm so lucky to be able to chat with that guy. He's such an amazing guy, runs a great company. As you can tell through my experience, it's been awesome working with Angel Host for the last couple months. If you guys are interested, you should definitely check them out. I was, overwhelmed and stressed out trying to build my business, and they have been a great partnership, helping me get better bookings, more revenue, all that good stuff. So definitely watch that video a couple of times though, because he drops all kinds of little gems in there that you guys could probably use for your listings. So hopefully that helps. I've been doing a bunch of interviews lately. I hope you guys like it. If you do, let me know in the comments, and I might have another really good one coming up soon. But anyways, stay tuned. See you next time. Back to stuff. Just work stuff.